No, Sinder Redacted did not make accusations about overworking their editor, and I'm going to try to convince you of this narrative. Everything in this video is going to have chapters, and everything I'll be covering in the video has already been covered. I'm just bringing attention to the fact that they didn't make accusations about overworking their editor. And of course, this is heavily biased, so keep that in mind moving forward. So, I want to bring attention to a snippet of Nanoless's doc that I questioned after reading it for the umpteenth time. It's in the section Exclusivity in Blacklisting Other Creators. And here's what throws me off. Here, the last sentence of the first paragraph of this section. Nanoless says, "This felt very strange given that one of the accusations they made was overworking their editor. Yet their solution to me working with other creators was for them to essentially overwork me to keep me from working on other projects." But I'm not going to focus on the last part of the sentence. I'm going to be focusing on this part, where she says, "This felt very strange given that one of the accusations they made was overworking their editor." When I read this for the umpteenth time, I immediately thought to myself, what accusation? So I scanned the doc of the screenshots between Nanoless and Redacted. I did a little quick scan, and they do mention Redacted, mention the YouTube editor, but I don't really see him make accusations about overworking their editor. I don't know if I'm misunderstanding that sentence or whatnot. Feel free to correct me if I'm wrong. But I was really confused about it. And it talks about Bow's envy, the song's flopped, which is bad on Redacted's part for even mentioning that. Then again, these direct messages were made in private, but Nanoless decided to show it to the world for some reason, so yeah. Bao had original songs last year that had envies by her editor, and the songs flopped. Her editor met us at TwitchCon and was saying that he'd love to work with us, practically jumping through hoops to get something planned. The practically jumping through hoops thing, that was an over-exaggeration, as we'll see later. But yeah, if you look through the screenshots between Redacted and Nanoless in this entire doc, nowhere in there do I see Redacted or Sinder make accusations about overworking their editor, and it really just rubs me the wrong way. Why would you put that in there if you're not going to provide proof regarding that? And if there is proof, where is it in the doc? And if someone could help me out with that, that'd be great. But as far as I can see, I'm just glancing at all the screenshots in this doc of Nanoless. I really don't see Redacted stating or making accusations about overworking their editor. Am I reading the sentence wrong? Let's go back up. Let's reread that sentence. Just, let's read the paragraph, alright? So, in the beginning, Nanoless says, "In the message below, they mentioned wanting an exclusivity contract, but they didn't want to pay for exclusivity, but rather when a creator from their blacklist comes asking for a commission, they would guarantee me model work for Sinder only, and if anyone asked me for the commissions, they'd commission me instead to compensate for not working with other creators. This felt very strange given that one of the accusations they made was overworking their editor, yet their solution to me working with other creators was for them to essentially overwork me to keep me from working on other projects." Okay, that's weird. All I'm focusing right now is for this part. So, the Nanoless claims that it's very strange that one of the accusations they made was overworking their editor. But after glancing through the screenshots that Nanoless provides, where does that accusation come from? Where does that accusation come from? I don't know. I don't even see it in here. What is she talking about? Also here, now, they were paying for exclusivity. Just want to make that side comment. Okay, so I delved a bit more into this, and they're talking about the editor, right? Which I'm going to make the assumption here. This is a big assumption that they're talking about the YouTube editor that Redacted claims Bao hijacked or whatever. And that editor is Sacramore. Right here, especially in this screenshot that wasn't in Nanoless's doc, by the way. It's in Bao's doc, but it's not here. In fact, we can go to Bao's doc real quick. oh look, it's here. But if you try to look for this specific screenshot, it's not in Nanoless's doc, it's in Bao's doc and Sacramore's doc. So here it is. Now, before we continue on, let's address something that Nanoless says here about this whole thing. And they're saying they're overworking their editor, right? Overworking. So what is being overworked? Because, you know, what does that mean? So I looked it up on Google, and it's literally being overworked means working beyond one's capacity or healthy limits, leading to physical and mental strain, and often involves excessive hours, a heavy workload, or an inability to disconnect from work, ultimately impacting one's well-being and work-life balance. So overworking basically ruins you mentally and physically. All right. So that is what it means to be overworked. So that way we established like a benchmark to go off of. Okay. So we go here, right? So like I said, I delved into this. And I'm like, okay, so Sacramore's the editor, I'm assuming. I'm making that assumption. And so, of course, Sacramore has his doc about the Sinder situation. So I went through it to see that, hey, was Sacramore overworked? There is some things in here that could inch towards that claim, but here's the thing that throws me off. So, of course, Sacramore provides screenshots from Nanoless's screenshots, and then he provides his own receipts with Redacted. As you can see, you can actually check out the doc and see that, but Sacramore is working with Redacted here. Thanks for waiting. So, been waiting, trying to figure out if there was any feasible way I could slide Sinder into my schedule this month, but between moving in my new apartment this week and the Halloween album 7 MVs, I think November 9th is very earliest I could start. I'm very sorry, but if there's any projects after that date y'all would like me to do, I can lock y'all into my calendar 100%. Again, very sorry for any inconvenience. So, the thing is that Sacramore was willing to work with Redacted with like an MV, right? Usually, if you're overworked, I feel like you don't want to do that, but that's my assumption. And the fact that Sacramore is willing, like, he's trying to figure a way to slide Sinder into his schedule, right? And then if we scroll down, there's more receipts between Redacted and Sacramore that you can read into. And then here's where the whole overworked thing kind of crumbles a bit in my eyes. Because Sacramore says this, like I said, I'm still super down to do it and really hope to be able to work with Sinder on the video. But my schedule is always super packed, fully planned weeks and months ahead without much wiggle room. So just let me know what y'all would like to do or feeling. And then Redacted says, what do we pay you double? But that's besides the point. The fact of the matter is that Sacramore was willing to work with Redacted on this. So if he's willing to work on this, and granted he has a booked schedule like he says, that doesn't tell me that he's overworked. I mean, if you go to the screenshots here in Nanoless's doc, what was it? There it is. Here, Redacted says here on January 15th, 2025, 8:42 p.m. He managed to have him squeeze in Boss Rush MV between his work with Bao. He says he loved working on it and is super excited to work on the next MV project. Which, I mean, kind of supported by the fact that Sacramore really wanted to do it, from what I understand. Now, here's where the argument could take place about him being overworked, because it's this section of Sacramore's doc, where he states that he didn't get assets until closer to the deadline, and then somewhere here, like, if we read it, also the stream was pushed back for a reason of the video wasn't done yet. Song was going up at 2 p.m. if I remember. However, this part really got under my skin due to the fact it was just straight up not true. And if something goes wrong in the video production line, no matter who's at fault, the blame will fall to the editor animator pretty much every time. I'm still not sure why stream was pushed back. So it felt as if I was getting passively aggressively blamed publicly on stream in front of thousands of. For the lateness really upset me, since the video was not late even under a very tight deadline where I did not even receive all the artwork until the 18th. Late assets. The first full master until the 19th, and was then asked to also make a teaser version as well as an ad for the end of the video for their merch on the 21st, which I was not informed at all prior to planning. I also had skipped going home for Thanksgiving after having a family member pass to get this video done and rushed the hell out of it. The entire video was done from scratch a little under 2 weeks, since there were quite a few both visual and audio assets I did not have at the time that even remotely resembled what the final product would sound like, so I felt this was an attack on my work ethic, which is something I take quite a lot of pride in. So this is the argument that you can say that Sacramore was overworked, because remember, a characteristic of being overworked is like physical and mental strain. There's that. So you could make the argument about that But the fact of the matter is, I mean, maybe you can argue that, but the fact of the matter is, Sacramore was willing to fit Sinder into his schedule earlier in these screenshots here. So I've been trying to figure out a way if there's any feasible way I could slide Sinder into my schedule. He wanted to work with Sinder. And then here he says, like I said, I'm still super down to do it. So I feel like, sure, you can maybe you could say he was overworked, right? But he still really wanted to work with Sinder. But for like for argument's sake, I would say he's not overworked. Sure, okay, if you go to the nuances, maybe he was overworked a little bit, but for the most part, I deem this as no overwork, especially since he had a full schedule, but he was willing to work with Sinder on that. And so that's what I would like to say. And the only characteristic that falls under the overworked thing was physical and mental strain. I didn't really see burnout, poor work-life balance, if you can see it, inability to disconnect or heavy workload. Well, technically there was, because he was packed. So there was 2 characteristics of being overworked. But the thing is, again, I'm repeating for like the umpteenth time, the fact that he really did want to work with Sinder. So that was a whole tangent that I got into. But let's go back to the initial claim of the video is, did Sinder and Redacted make accusations about overworking their editor? I just wanted to show this because I think this is related to the whole thing. And Sacramore had a full schedule, but he still wanted to work with Sinder. That's basically what it is from these screenshots, which, by the way, takes place over the course of like what is it? 2024, so this is November 12th, 2024. So let's go back. I know this video has been a bit of a tangent, but the thing is, if you look at this at face value, about Nanoless saying one of the accusations they made was overworking their editor, if you look through the screenshots, nowhere in these screenshots do I see explicitly Redacted or Sinder stating that they overworked their editor. And the closest I could even get to that is if you cross-reference a bunch of things and realize that the YouTube editor that was mentioned earlier was Sacramore, and he goes into detail about how he worked with an NV with Sinder. And the screenshots show that he was willing to work with Sinder. So I don't understand where this claim comes from. I don't get where Nanoless gets that claim when none of the screenshots actually, support this claim. And if you really wanted to support this claim, you'd have to really dig into it. But anyway, this was a very disorganized video. I just really wanted to bring attention to that. So, what does this mean? It means that Sinder and Redacted did not make accusations about working their editor. Now, with that being said, all this stuff I used for this video will be in the description below. I encourage you, the viewer, to check out the source so you can come to your own independent conclusion.